Hi everyone, it's Mila here. I just recently started a beginner-friendly Stardew Valley playthrough here on my channel, and that's why in today's video I kind of wanted to share with you guys some of my favorite tips on Stardew Valley. I don't know where I was going with that. I wanted to share some super basic beginner-friendly tips for your first spring in Stardew Valley. I swear I cannot talk. So yeah, these are some super basic tips. Something to just make your life a little bit easier on your first spring. These are obviously for those of you who might be like playing Stardew Valley for the first time, or maybe you don't know anything about Stardew Valley, or you played it so long ago you don't remember anything, or you've always had like a little bit of hard time to get into the game. So super basic, nothing revolutionary, just something to hopefully make your first spring in Stardew Valley a bit easier. So here are my 22 tips for your first spring in Stardew Valley. Tip number 1. Might be super basic, but start planting your crops really close to a water source. In the very beginning, you will have a really crappy watering can, which basically means that you're gonna have to run back and forth while watering your crops. So you really want to start your farm really close to a pond or any water source that you have on your farm. And not only does it save you a little bit of hassle of running back and forth, but this way you can also kind of skip on building a well eventually. If you are watching my playthrough, I explained this a little bit more, but yeah, in my humble opinion, wells are almost quite unnecessary. You can kind of skip on them, unless if you want to use them for decoration purposes. Tip number 2, if you accidentally make a mistake on your farm while hoeing it and it looks kind of bad, you can use your pickaxe to unhoe the ground. Super basic, okay, but I have to mention it because sometimes it takes a little bit to like figure all that out. Okay, tip number 3. I don't really know how to explain this in a really good way, but I will try. So while you are clearing your farm and cutting down trees, it takes 10 hits to cut down one tree and it will leave a stump. But in the very beginning, you want to skip on cutting down the stumps because they don't actually give you that much resources versus on how much energy you spend cutting them down. So in the very beginning, I would say like maybe the first 2 weeks, I know it's not gonna look so good, but just leave the stumps be because they don't really give you a lot of wood when you cut them down, and it's just gonna kind of waste your energy. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, if you want to cut down trees in the beginning, just cut down the whole tree, but leave the stump be for the time being. You can come back to them later once you figured out like your snack game and like you know how to recover your energy better. Not super important, but just nice to know actually if you want to kind of like maximize on your energy. Number 4, occasionally you might find mixed seeds around your farm. These are basically free seeds that you can use. They will grow a random seasonal crop, so sometimes it might make your farm look a little bit messy, but yeah, it's a free crop, free money. You might just want to be a little bit careful with them towards the end of the season because it can technically be any seasonal crop, and some seasonal crops might take like 11 or 12 days. So towards the end of it, you know, towards the end of the season, I mean, you might want to be a little bit careful with these. I mean, obviously it's a free seed, whatever, if you waste it, you waste it. But yeah, just as a heads up, if you plant mixed seeds really late in the season, you might actually kind of waste them. Also, one thing that I want to note for later in the game, you want to keep your mixed seeds. Like, do not trash them. Do not think that they're trash because you will need them for some crafting recipes later on. So just as a heads up. In general, even in Stardew Valley, like, do not trash anything. You'll always need something for something at some point. Tip number 5, dumpster diving is a gold mine. Yes, you heard that right. You want to check the trash cans that are located around the town. They might occasionally drop like really good resources, mainly like food and snacks, and especially in the very beginning of the game you need those, so remember to dumpster dive. Tip number 6, if you venture out to the southern part of your farm and you just keep on going, you will find a little spot that has spring onions. Yeah, this is for spring only and very, very handy in the very beginning of the game, especially when you struggle with energy and recovering energy. Spring onions are a great snack. Obviously, towards the end of the game, end of the season, whatever, they're not gonna provide you with a lot of energy, but they're quite a handy free snack, especially if you have chosen the normal community center bundle and not the remixed ones. You can pretty much eat your spring onions without anything to worry about that you might need them later or something like that. Tip number 7. The best beginning crop for spring is potatoes, especially on your first year. I know there are like some cauliflower fans out there, but especially in the very beginning of the game, you're just gonna need cash fast, and potatoes are the best way. They make you a lot of money, but they don't take too long to grow. We'll talk about cauliflower in year 2, okay? Tip number 8, if you see these squiggly lines on ground while you are exploring Stardew Valley, remember to dig them up with your hoe, because you might find some rare artifacts to give to your museum, or to take to your museum, display in your museum. Anyways, take them to your museum. Tip number 9. You might want to be a bit careful while cutting down this longer grass around your farm. You really do want to save it, at least most of it, until you have a silo, because this grass will turn into hay for your animals eventually. So yeah, just don't go ham scything down all this grass around your farm in the beginning of the game, because you will actually need this for later. The weeds are a different thing, but just be careful while cutting down this longer wavy grass. But yeah, in the end of the day, if you cut a little bit, especially in front of the house, it's not such a big deal. It does regrow every day as long as there is some of it left on the farm. Okay, let's talk about fishing. So as tip number 10, fishing is a great way to spend those I have nothing to do kind of days. Yes, fishing can be kind of difficult in the beginning of Stardew Valley, especially if you are new to the game, but eventually it will get better. And fishing is kind of like an infinite loop, because you can keep eating the fish that you get for stamina. Yeah, so you can practically just fish all day long. So it's great for those early game days when you kind of don't have anything to do, you haven't unlocked anything just yet. Tip number 11, if you are having a hard time learning how to fish, especially with the bamboo pole, you can buy a beginner's rod, or what is it called? Something like that from Willie's. It is much easier to learn how to fish with this rod. I used it in the very beginning when I was struggling with fishing, and yeah, it's just way easier to fish with that. Just, I think you're not gonna be able to catch like very rare fish with it, but yeah, this rod is basically just there for the beginning so you can learn how to fish, and it's way less stressful with this one, I remember. Tip number 12, if you are having a really hard time learning how to fish and you just basically want to give up on that whole thing, you can level up your fishing with crab pots eventually. So yeah, don't be too worried. If fishing is just nightmare fuel for you, you can use crab pots instead. Also, as a bonus tip, I just wanted to say, like, later on when you can upgrade your fishing pole, you can buy bobbers, and bobbers, is that how you say it? I'm not sure. But yeah, they help you out with fishing way more. And me personally, fishing is like one of my favorite things in Stardew Valley. It's so relaxing. So once you get the hang of it, I'm telling you, it's not that bad. But I know it can be kind of difficult in the beginning. Tip number 13. I know inventory in the very beginning is a nightmare. Having to shuffle the space in your backpack, ooh, it can be a real struggle. That's why I would recommend that you place a chest in the mines, or maybe close to your favorite fishing spot or something like that. You just might want to be a little bit careful on where to place them, because technically if they are on a path of an NPC, the NPC is gonna destroy that chest and all the items will be scattered around. But yeah, you can find some guides on where to place items that they are not in an NPC's way, in case you want to have like a fishing chest somewhere close to your favorite fishing spot. But yeah, at least for the ones in the mines, you can place them pretty freely. I don't think there's any NPCs ever in the mines. Tip number 14, and this is only if you get really lucky, but if you manage to find a prismatic shard on your first spring, save it for later. Do not give it to the museum. Once you get a second one, you can give the second one to the museum. But prismatic shard, you really need it for late game or like later in the game. I'm just telling you, if you are lucky and you manage to find one really early on, hold on to it. Do not do anything with it. Just keep it for later. And this is a spoiler, so if you don't want to listen to this, just skip a little bit ahead in time. But yeah, basically you need the prismatic shard for the best weapon in the game, or best sword. It's the best weapon. Tip number 15. Okay, let's quickly talk about tools and tool upgrades. So in my humble opinion, I think the most important first tool upgrade is the pickaxe, because you need it for mines, and there's just so many good resources in the mines, and otherwise like stuff that you need in order to progress in the game, like stuff for the community center and yada yada yada. So I think pickaxe is definitely your #1 priority for a tool upgrade. As a tip number 16, if you do wanna upgrade your watering can, however, you do wanna wait for a rainy day. So check your TV every day. If it says that you have a rainy day the next day, you wanna go and upgrade your watering can on that day. So the next day when it rains, you don't miss out on watering your crops, because it does take 2 days to upgrade your weapons and your tools. 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 Tip number 17. If we are talking about upgrades, I think the most important upgrade in the very beginning of the game is your backpack. The first upgrade is the most important. I think you can go on for a really long time without the third upgrade, but yeah, you do want to save your money and get the first backpack upgrade, because it does help so much in the mines and in general. Tip number 18 is a bit of a bonus tip as well, I guess, but this is just if you want to make your life a little bit easier. Once you start making a little bit of money, you might want to consider buying a calendar from Robin. The calendar will display the same calendar as you can find in the town center, but you can place it in your house so you can check it every morning, which makes it like so much more easier. You know, you don't have to do this little like trip to the town if you want to check the calendar for anyone's birthdays or whatever. So yeah, that's kind of like a bonus tip. Like nice to know information that you can buy this thing from Robin. I didn't know this for the longest time. Tip number 19. So on Sundays, you do want to check your TV, because there is one very important TV show running on Sundays. There is a rerun on Wednesdays, by the way, if you miss it on Sunday. But yeah, you want to check out Queen of Sauce to get your free recipe of the day. And this will be very important once you upgrade your house and get a kitchen. Spoiler. But yeah, you do need those recipes, but you do want to check your TV every day anyways. Tip number 20, and this is probably the most obvious but the best tip in Stardew Valley, especially when you are gathering stuff for your community center. When you go to your inventory or like your menu and your pockets, you will find this tiny icon in the right upper corner. It looks like a golden tree or something like that. And when you hover over an item in your backpack, if it is needed for the community center, this icon will pulsate, and that is such a lifesaver. Also, if you click on the item, you can actually open the whole community center bundle information, so you don't have to like go to your community center to check what you need. You can just check all of that info from the golden tree icon. Super handy tip, I love this one. Tip 21. During your time in Stardew Valley, you probably stumble across on many different quests from the NPCs on the town bulletin board, or whatever you want to call this. You definitely want to do these quests, and there is no penalty as far as I know on failing them. But yeah, every time you see a quest popping up on the bulletin board, just accept it, try to complete it. It does give you a nice chunk of coins usually, and it helps out with the friendships with the townsfolk. So yeah, that's a really nice way of making some money and making some friends. So definitely do not ignore these quests. Usually they're also super easy. Okay, tip number 22 for your first spring in Stardew Valley. And this one is a bit, it might not actually happen in the first spring, but it most likely will, I think. But eventually Demetrius will approach you with a question about the caves. He will ask you if you would like to set up like fruit bats or mushrooms in your local cave that is found on your farm. My best tip is to probably choose the fruit bats, especially if you chose the regular bundles for community center. The fruit bats will help you out so much more than the mushrooms, because they will actually occasionally drop like fruit, like tree fruits, and making fruit trees is super expensive. Growing fruit trees or buying the saplings is really expensive. So especially if you wanna complete your community center quite fast or even in the first year, fruit bats is probably the better option. But then again, if you're not in a hurry, you can also choose the mushrooms. I think for a later game, they might be a better choice. I'm not sure. I always go for the bats though. And that concludes my 22 best tips for your first spring in Stardew Valley. I hope I didn't forget about something really obvious, but then again, if you do want to find out more tips and tricks and maybe play along with me, I have a new super beginner friendly playthrough on the channel right now. We are not too many episodes in just yet, but I would love to see you there if you are interested in learning more about Stardew Valley. One of my actually favorite tips for Stardew beginners is to watch someone else play and maybe play along. That's how I learned how to play Stardew Valley, because yeah, sometimes it might be a little bit difficult to get into this game, but once you do, I promise you it's such a wholesome game and super addictive, so you've been warned. But yeah, you are very welcome to come and hang out for the Stardew Valley Let's Play episodes. I will link them in this video, obviously. And yeah, I hope these tips help you out. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Bye, guys! Obviously, if I forgot something super obvious, feel free to share your favorite spring tips in the comments down below. And tell me, what is your favorite spring crop? Are you a potato queen or do you go for cauliflowers? Let me know in the comments below.